Hi, good evening. My name is Mrs. Campbell, obviously from Calderside. This is a very different way for all of us to meet, but I'd really like to thank you for joining in tonight, and hopefully you find the session useful. I'm just going to talk for a wee while, and then Mrs. Steele's going to talk from Support for Learning, and then Mrs. Ben's going to talk and give us some information about pupil support. Okay. I first of all, I'd like to introduce Mr. Dodds, who's our head teacher, and Mr. Dodds would like to welcome you to Calderside as well before I go on to talk to you briefly. Mr. Dodds, over to you.
Okay, thanks, Mrs. Campbell. Hello, folks. Apologies for being a wee bit late to the party there. This is a kind of strange experience for us having to do these things online, but needs must in these COVID times. You'll understand that Mrs. Campbell is going to take you through this evening's proceedings and introduce each section as we go. And hopefully we'll get a wee feel for what's going to happen to your children, and the young people here will get the chance to experience what's going to be happening to them when they come up to the school in August. So sit back and relax. I'm quite sure Mrs. Campbell sat with her Scotland top on. I think we're a wee bit disappointed after today's performance, but we'll not go there. But she'll take you through the proceedings this evening. I just wanted to say a big hope things go well over the summer. If we don't obviously won't see you much between now and then, we hope to see everyone fitting well on the first day back in August, which I think is Monday the 16th of August. And your young person will be coming along to join us a first year at Calderside Academy. It's quite a daunting prospect, but I know what, they'll have a great time. We'll look after them really well, and they'll have a chance to flourish during their 4, 5, 6 years of friend at secondary school. So I won't say any more than that just now, other than to hand you back to Mrs. Campbell, who will take you through this evening's proceedings. Thank you, Pauline.
Thank you. Apologies, everybody. I actually forgot to apologise to you for wearing a Scotland top, because obviously we're wearing Scotland tops in school today, and I stayed on, didn't go home, and that's why I've still got it on. So, first of all, just to make a wee start. Okay, we have 8 what we call feeder primary schools that come to us. You'll obviously be one of the 8. We also have a couple of placing request pupils that are coming in as well. So the 8 feeder primaries that we've got there, 3 from Blantyre and the rest in Hamilton area. We've got great relationships with all the schools, with all the deputy head teachers and the head teachers and the office staff in all those primary schools. And as I'm going on to talk about, they give us lots of information about the pupils and your children before they come up here. What I'd like to talk about is what we've done so far. And yes, these are COVID times, and yes, things have been very different this year. We've had to look at how we do things very differently, but it has worked, and we do believe that we know your children. We've got as much information as we can about your child to make their move into secondary school as smooth as possible. So what we have done then, there have been liaison meetings with primary head teachers, not face-to-face meetings as it would normally have been, but we have had online meetings and phone calls with the primary head teachers. I managed to get out before the Easter holidays, which was great, out to all the 8 primary schools, met the primary teachers, but more importantly at that point met the primary 7s in their bubbles. Really enjoyed the visits. The kids were all great, lots and lots of questions, which was a good experience, a good time to answer those for them as well. Our support for learning staff, including Mrs. Steele, have been liaising really closely with the primary schools, and Mrs. Steele will speak to you briefly about that as well. Pupil support, we managed after the Easter holidays to have pupil support staff going out to the primary schools. Again, visiting the primary schools, in a lot of instances, obviously they had to be in their bubbles, but in a lot of instances they were out in the playgrounds so that they would be allowed to come back into, the staff would be allowed to come back into Calderside, but it actually worked great. Again, the kids were really upbeat with the visits. They enjoyed meeting pupil support staff and hearing more about the role that they carry out when they're from Calderside, which was brilliant. The pupil support teachers, they had that when they were out at the primaries. They had the opportunity to meet with the P7 teachers and get lots of information again about your children. Some pupils at primary schools, as they do at Calderside, have review meetings, and these normally take place round about this time towards the end of term. Our support for learning department staff have attended those meetings, and again they've been online, and there's been a few of those. We have, Mrs. Steele has been involved dealing with enhanced transition. Again, I feel as if I'm repeating myself, I apologise, has been very different this year. We would normally have a lot of the pupils up to the school, not allowed to do it for obvious reasons this year, but what Mrs. Steele has set up has been meetings with some of these kids via Google Classrooms, and that has gone really well. Okay, that's been a great experience for them as well. What I managed to do was to have one of our English staff, a Mrs. Scott, who works part-time here, so that meant for 2 days a week she could actually go into the primary schools. Because we're not allowed to visit 2 schools in the one day, so in those 2 days she was going out and visiting 1 primary a day and was having a poetry lesson with the pupils, and again she came back with really up-to-date useful information about the pupils, about your children, which was brilliant. 2 weeks ago, I think it was, when we had the 2 in-service days, we managed to get the P7s up for a tour of the school and a chat again with our pupil support teacher. You could see by their faces that they loved it. You know, when they first walk in, even just the size of the school kind of blows them away initially, but they loved walking round. They loved the opportunity to see in the different classrooms, to see the wings, to see the street area, to see the PE facilities. They were, again, really, really positive about it. They came in their bubbles, sanitised their hands, they all had masks on. We had 15 separate groups because of the bubbles, but it went really well over the 2 days, and really relieved and glad that we did that for them. That was brilliant. What we've been stressing to the primary schools is to encourage the pupils and yourselves, but to look at our Twitter account and also to look at our website. Lots of new up-to-date information on there as well, which I'm sure that you'll find very useful. Obviously, when lockdown happened after Christmas, I had a big panic about the P7s, and I approached staff at Calderside who spent a lot of their time making videos for the P7s and introducing our P7s to the different departments in the school. I didn't want to put them on the school Twitter, so what I did was they were sent to the primary schools, and the primary schools then put them onto their own Google Classrooms. The kids seemed to really get a lot out of them. They got a lot of kind of up-to-date information, a lot of information about the courses that they'll be studying. They also, one of the videos was a tour, and it was a chat by the 6 years about their experiences and giving them some advice, and that seemed to go down really well. So that's all been great, as much as we could do given the circumstances. One thing I wanted to say to you was that on the visits, the tour that they had a couple of weeks ago, they should have left with 4 different booklets. Moving on up booklets, an information sheet, and a meet the departments, which are all obviously kind of information and good information for you to have as well. The one I didn't mention there was the one that's called My Transition Passport. What I'd like to do is encourage you to have your child fill that in. Now, they can either return it to the primary school and we'll collect it when we collect their files, or they can bring it back in August. That's a really good first lesson when they come in, when they go into PSC with a pupil support teacher. kind of about their feelings about coming to high school, but coming to Calderside, how they've coped with it, etc., and any questions that they might have. So again, if you could do that, if you could get them to complete that at home, be honest about it, hand it into the P7 teacher, as I said, and we'll collect it or bring it back in August. That would be really useful. What I've put on the PowerPoint now, if you don't have older children at high school, this might be new to you. This is our school day. Now, schools are all different, slightly different in their timings. But in one of the booklets that the pupils were given out, you'll see a section that gives you the specific timings. Our school day every day starts at 10 to 9. We are hoping that come August we're back to this timetable because we're having to do it slightly different just now because of COVID to try and limit movement about the school. But let's hope and let's assume that we're back to normal come August. This is a kind of random first year timetable, but this is what your child's timetable will look like. A Monday, Tuesday is our long days. We're in school until 10 to 4 and we've got 7 different classes. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday is a 3 o'clock finish. And you can see how the day is divided up into the subjects. One thing I will say is that when the first year starts, I say this to the first years as well, the first 2 to 3 weeks, they are shattered. They're absolutely shattered when they go home. Not that they've not been working really hard at primary school, of course they have, but it's the movement between the classes that they're not used to. It's carrying their bags and a slightly longer day on a Monday and Tuesday, but they're happy and they're tired in a good way, okay? They do enjoy it, they do enjoy the change, and they do enjoy the different subjects that they've not studied before, okay? Now, obviously, you'll have seen these subjects in the timetable. Some of them will be new to them, I would assume, like home economics and technical. Some of them will probably have covered before at primary school, but that's the subjects that your child will study in first year, okay? PSE is personal and social education, and that will be your child's pupil support teacher that will take that class, okay? You might wonder how many periods of each subject that your child gets. You can see it on here. English and Maths for both, they have 4 periods, 4 times a week. They're in English and Maths, and you can work down yourself. French and Science 3 times a week, and you can see the rest as you work down. And they've 2 periods down at the bottom of PSC. We've included registration in there. They're only in registration for 10 minutes a day, but when you add that up over the week, then that's a full period, if you like. And we work in periods. It's a 32 period week that we operate at Calderside. Okay. We try to think about the questions that we were normally asked at a normal parents' night, if you like. And the one that we were always asked about was uniform. There we go. So, folk ask about uniform, it's basically black and white, okay? Skirts or trousers, absolutely fine, as long as they're black. No denim, so not black jeans, got to be black trousers. Their footwear should be wearing black shoes. We don't insist on a blazer, but if they're wearing a jacket, please a black jacket. The shirt or the blouse, white. Their school tie, because they didn't get the transition we would have wanted for them, Mr. Dodds very kindly agreed to purchase ties for all their P7s. Now, some of the primary 7 staff still have the ties, but I think they're talking about issuing them out when they have an afternoon kind of leaving do for the P7s, so they will be given a tie. They're all at the primary schools just now. If they're wanting to wear something to keep them warm, they can wear plain black sweatshirt, a v-neck so we can see their tie, or a cardigan or a jumper. Need to bring in something to change into in PE. Again, let's have fingers crossed that we can get into the PE changing rooms come August. A t-shirt. Now, there it says a plain light coloured t-shirt. I must have caught Mr. Dodds on a good day, because he again agreed. We did it last year, but we managed to purchase and we'll issue these to the S1s in August. We've got special PE tops to issue to them in their house colours. And they're really smart, actually. The kids, the first years, are still wearing them. So they'll get one of those t-shirts out. And if they just wear shorts or joggies along with them, but the PE staff do ask that if they're wearing trainers, black trainers to school, they bring separate trainers in for PE. Okay. Now there'll be a chance at the end if anybody's got any questions, but in the meantime, I'm going to pass you over to Mrs. Steele, who'll talk about the role of the Support for Learning department.
Okay. Oh, hopefully you can see and hear me okay. I'm Kirsty Steele. I'm the Principal Teacher of Support for Learning here at Calderside Academy. As Mrs. Campbell has said, we're having to do things slightly differently this year. Normally I would have many visits down to the primary schools, but instead what we've had is virtual visits, and we've done them through Google Classroom and through Microsoft Teams. Now, although I haven't been able to get down to the schools, rest assured I have had many meetings with the primary 7 teachers and head teachers to gather information about the pupils who are coming up to Calderside. Now, with that information, I share that with my Support for Learning team, and I also pass that on to our wider team, who may be Mrs. Campbell, the pupil support teachers, the special support teachers, and anyone else who might be involved in that child's education. Now, you can see from the PowerPoint there, we're a huge team. I'm lucky to have as many assistants as I do as well, and they will be in most of your child's S1 classes to shadow them, to make sure they're settled in okay, and again, just to monitor and to see what kind of strategies we need to put into place to support your child. Parents and carers are definitely a huge part of our team. We work together to support our children and to come up with different strategies that's going to let them to do their best and to break down any barriers which they are experiencing. We work with lots of outside agencies, again, to advise us. We work with the wider school, and an important one to highlight here is the pupils. We work closely with 6 years and invite them to become buddies to the first years as well, and also our 3rd year pupils as well. Now, all of this takes a wee while to organise because we want to get to know the pupils in August. So by September weekend, we should have our buddies allocated, and we do lots of training with them as well to help them to support our first years with literacy, numeracy, and health and wellbeing in what we call our learning hub. And again, we have an extended team of specialist support teachers who we work with as well. Okay, so as we've mentioned, the transition process has started a long time ago. We've gathered lots of information, and in fact, I've spoken to many of you on the phone and at meetings to decide on the kind of best supports that we can provide for the children here at Calderside Academy. We have managed to have an enhanced transition visit up to the school, and we have had, as I say, many of doing different activities and just really building our relationships with the pupils via Google Meets, and we hope to keep on doing that until the end of term. Okay, so what kind of support do we offer? We're a school-wide support. We are in lots and lots of different classes, and what we do is we support all children in the class and also support the teachers to help with their teaching. We support a wide range of needs, from the poorest of children to the more able and everything else in between. We organise lots of intervention groups. We have lots of different things running, and again, if any of these are decided, we'll be working alongside you as well. We assess and screen pupils if we are concerned that a pupil might have a barrier to learning. We're working in partnership. We are looking at assessment arrangements, whether your child may need a reader or a scribe or some kind of special arrangement for assessments. We manage additional support plans if your child has that, and we organise review meetings, and we coordinate the intervention groups. And just some of the other supports that we offer. We have drop-in sessions. We have a very much an open door policy where children can come and see us at any time. We're in class, so we get to know them really well. We offer the early bird group, and for many of the children, walking into the street area in the mornings can be quite daunting. It can be noisy, it can be crowded. So we open the doors just after 8 o'clock in the morning in the Support for Learning department, where pupils can come up and use computers, sit in their friendship groups, or get a bit of support with any of their work or their homework. Wellbeing is something that's really important. Our wellbeing and having a positive mindset is very much the foundations of everything we do in the school. So we run an anxiety and wellbeing group as well, and comes with that is the resilience group. We do a lot of work with our pupils on the autistic spectrum. So we have our ASD mentoring groups, reciprocal reading, we talk about study skills, and ICT is a huge thing that we do or offer to provide help break down any barriers with learning as well. Okay, I think that might be our last slide. So again, I'll pass you back to Mrs. Campbell, but any issues, we'll constantly be monitoring your children, and any issues, just get in contact with the school. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Mrs. Steele. That was really useful, really interesting. I'm going to pass you on to Mrs. Bennett in a second, but what I'd like to do is ask if you've got any questions from what I said or Mrs. Steele or what Mrs. Benn's going to say. If you want to key them in as we're going along, then we can answer them at the end, if that makes sense to you. Okay. And now Mrs. Benn's going to tell you a bit more about our pupil support team.
Thanks, Mrs. Campbell. Hi, as Mrs. Campbell said, I'm Karen Benn. I'm part of the pupil support team. I have a dual role in the school. I'm part of the pupil support team, but I'm also the Developing the Young Workforce Coordinator. And I'll mention that slightly later on as part of our vocational support that we offer young people. We're very heavily involved in the transition process. And as Mrs. Campbell has said, and it seems we're saying COVID constantly at the moment, but due to COVID, we haven't been able to visit primary schools in the way that we are used to. However, we have been very flexible, and I'm delighted to say I was one of the staff who had the opportunity to visit Glenlee Primary in the playground and meet with primary 7 staff and primary 7 pupils. And it was, I have to say, a really, really delightful and pleasurable experience. And the comments and things from pupils was absolutely superb. My colleagues also visited all of the other associated primaries, so no school was left, without a visit of some description. Now, we do live in Scotland, so we were relying on the weather a wee bit for playground visits. So some of the visits did happen virtually, where we had a Teams meeting and the pupil support member of staff was able to speak to pupils via Teams over the computer into their classroom. So with no excuses, we managed to cover everybody. Okay, so on the screen you can see our pupil support structure. We have 4 house groups in Calderside Academy, and we all cater for about 200 pupils in our caseload each, from S1 right through to S6. The beauty of that is that we get to know your young people very, very well. We'll meet them in S1 for the first time, but we will remain as their pupil support teacher throughout their time at Calderside, right through to the day that they are leaving school. And we will offer the same support the whole way through. So we know them very, very well by the time they're leaving school. You'll notice at the bottom there is also ASN. Mrs. Smith is part of our pupil support team and is the pupil support team for our additional support needs unit. Now, when your young person arrives at Calderside, they will be in a class which will have a letter 1 at the front, which denotes that they're in first year. And then they will have a letter that shows you what house they are in. So my house is Mull House, so my first year class will be 1M2. And the 2 is simply because I look after the M2 classes and Mr. Gow looks after the M1 classes. So it's just a way that we split it. The 2 means nothing more than that it's split between 2 different pupil support teachers. Now, one of our big areas that we offer is our pastoral support. This is a big role for us, especially in first year. We know that your young people will be very nervous about moving school. They will be so settled in their primary schools. And at the moment, they're the leaders in their school. They are showing, the good role models. And we'll come into first year and it can be a bit unnerving to feel like you're starting over again. We will contact home whenever necessary, and that might be for good things or bad things. We phone whenever we need to, and we like the communication to be two-way. So we have a very open door policy, and we welcome emails and phone calls from parents if you have any concerns at all. One of the big things that we do monitor is our attendance in our pastoral support, because if the pupil's not here, then they will miss valuable lessons. So we also look after that too. We also do offer vocational support, and a big part of my role, as you'll see on the screen there, is with the developing young workforce, and I liaise with the pupil support teams very closely with this, so that we can offer the most up-to-date vocational information that we can to young people when it counts, so when they're starting to apply and think about moving on. We do careers education as part of personal social education, and I know that moving on might seem a long, long way away when your young people are only coming into first year, but we do careers education from the get-go, and it's so that we can start to get them on that journey and looking at their career journey. They will have been doing that in primary school, and we will just be navigating that more forward as we move forward in secondary. We also offer curricular support. We're a bit like the central hub in the school. So we get all the information from all the subject teachers, so we can see how your young person is doing academically within their classes and if support is needed. And we will go to support for learning if things are raised with us, if we feel that there is a need for support for learning to be involved, or we will go to external agencies if we feel that that is necessary. We want your young people to reach their potential and their full potential. And it's one of the things I kind of pride ourselves on in Calderside, that staff take a real pride in that. And we will offer as many different pathways as we possibly can to make sure that we are meeting the needs of your young person. So we are very heavily involved in the option choice process, and we'll be speaking to your young people at the key transition stages that involve those. Now, we cannot underestimate, I've talked about the support that all we can offer and what Calderside will offer, but you know your young person the best from anybody. You know their strengths, you know what they might need to be developed a bit further and what they might need a wee bit of help with. So it's essential that we work together to make sure they can be the best they can be. So please encourage your child to come and see us if they need any support on any aspect of their first year and coming into Calderside. One of the first things that we will do as part of the PSE curriculum will be, although they've had their tour, we will take them another wee short tour around the school and show them where our office is. But they can ask any of our senior school leaders and any staff where they can find us, so that they can come and speak to us, come and talk to us. But if they're a wee bit shy, not quite sure, or they come home and they say they had a wee concern and they didn't quite know how to come and get us, then please contact us by phone or by email, and we will go and look for them, and we'll have a wee chat and solve whatever we can. Thank you very much for listening tonight, and I'm going to pass you back to Mrs. Campbell. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much, Mrs. Ben. That was really useful. Getting some questions coming up, which is great, and I'll just go over these just now. There's somebody whose son's obviously coming up from a different school, and yes, they will get the 4 packs when they come up. I've already looked those out. When that's organised, they'll get those packs for the pupil support teacher when they come up. Another question is, when will they find out what house they're in? Okay, good question. Yes, they will find out their house and their class. However, they would normally have found that out at this evening, which we would normally have held in the street, which we can't do, we are not allowed to put up class lists outside on the windows because of GDPR rules. What I did last year was the parents came in the first day of the holidays and I was able to tell them, hopefully we don't have to do that this year. What I aim to do this week, towards the end of this week, is email the primaries. The classes are just about finished, getting made up. So I'll email the primary schools just with a kind of class list and with the class that your child's going to begin into. We've spent quite a lot of time over the past week concentrating on making up the classes. Lots to take into consideration. The primary schools let us know your child's friendship groups. We have to weigh that up against, yes, their friendship groups, but also looking at siblings and trying to get your child into the same house as their sibling. Sometimes it doesn't work if their friends are in another class. We also have to throw into the mix school of football. So we have to take that into account as well, because school of football is only for half of the classes and the other half don't participate in it. So we've got all that information though, and as I said, we've spent a lot of time and we will hopefully get that information out to the primaries to let the primaries tell your child what class they'll be in, if not by the end of this week, but as long as they know that before. And if there's any issues with it at all, then please give me a wee phone next week. On the first day, yeah, there's an area in the street or in the school between two wings. There'll be signs outside. One thing that I hadn't mentioned and I had written down there to talk to you about was, please tell your child not to worry, and don't you worry, there will be guides. Until they know their way about the school, until they know how to get from class to class, where to go at lunchtime, where to go at interval, there will be guides assigned to each class to meet the pupils just before the bell goes, to take them to the next class or to take them down to the street. On the first day, I'll have older pupils stationed about the schools directing the first years into one area. And from that area, we'll get them into their classes, we'll get them meeting their guides, and the guides, I'll have a chat with them all, and the guides will take them to their next class, and we'll continue doing that, as I said, until they're confident. Is there any more questions anybody would like to ask? If there is anything that obviously springs to mind after this, then feel free, as Mrs. Ben said, feel free to phone or to email, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. And my email address is just by magic has just appeared there on the screen. Thank you, Mr. Monahan. I'm just checking to see if there's any other comments or questions coming up. No, don't see any. Oh, good question. I know if PE is on their timetable, then I think that for the first day, the PE staff will simply issue them with their new top and talk to them about what they'll be covering in PE that year. They won't need a PE kit the first day. Yeah, they'll get the PE t-shirt the first time they're in PE in August. They're ordered just now. First day, all they need a school bag, obviously, in case they get any jotters out during the day. They'll get a homework diary, hopefully out the first day, so they need somewhere to put that. If they can bring stationery, pen, pencil, calculator, that's all they need really. And anything else will be issued to them in the school. At the moment, yes. Yes. Who knows what will happen come August, but all staff, we're not allowed visitors in the school, all staff, all pupils have to wear masks. And the only reason I'm not wearing a mask just now is because there's nobody else in the room. Mr. Monahan is far enough apart from me. Yep. Okay, doesn't appear to be anything else coming up. I really hope that you found this useful. But again, if there is anything else that you think, oh, I should ask that, or I didn't think about that, or I didn't go over that, then please contact me and we can kind of have a chat and I can fill you in and anything. I know it's, I mean, for 2 kids of my own, and there's a big step coming up to high school. Believe me, we do everything that we can. The first years last year, obviously they had a different experience. Yes, they had lockdown. They missed this whole term. They weren't in school from Easter to summer, and I did genuinely worry about those kids coming to high school. Any of the staff in here will tell you how well they settled. They surprised us all. They've done brilliantly. And I'm sure your children will be exactly the same. Okay, they'll come up and they go over it. They're so resilient. Take it in their stride. And we could see that even going out on the visits that we've done, myself and pupil support. They were all great, and we really look forward to them starting in August. Leggings, yes. Can wear them for PE. We don't encourage them as part of school uniform though, but they can wear them for PE. What you would do if your child is exempt from wearing a mask, if you can write a note or maybe get something from your GP, post that into me or give it to your child to give me on the first day. Then we'll email all the staff so the staff are aware of that. You might get a couple of staff saying, where's your mask? We'll also give your child a slip. We get that just now. Then the child just kind of flashes the bit of paper at the staff and the staff know that they're exempt from it. Okay. School football was described, it was the primaries know about it. We had trials just before the Easter holidays. It's where the kids basically play more football than they would normally play. For the 2 periods of PE, they take part in football and also a period of RE and a period of PSC. So they have 4 school of football hours sessions in school. The 2 staff who take the school of football are both PE staff, Mr. Gallagher and Mr. Burrell. Both of them are SFA trained. They carry on with school of football as they move into second year as well. We have, I think, a group of 21 this year and another group of 16. We're going to have a group of about 20 of boys and the other team's going to be a mixed team, but all the kids now know who's taking part in the school of football. Thanks very much. Thank you. That's good to know. But again, if there is anything else, then just get back to us. Yeah, that's part of what Mrs. Steele was talking about. Mrs. Steele's had lots of meetings, online meetings, etc. with the primary schools. We've got that information about the children. If they do have additional support needs, and we put that, Mrs. Steele puts that information together and puts that out so that all the children's teachers know that information before they start. Mrs. Steele, if you get anything you want to add to that? Put mute off.
That's us. We have lots of information that we've gathered from the primaries and many meetings. And if your child has an additional support need, whether it's dyslexia, autism, ADHD, or even they've got a literacy or numeracy difficulty, or in fact, they're more advanced and working in 3rd level groups already, all of that information is shared with us, and we create what we call a support for learning profile, which is an easy to read page which has the needs of the pupil and the suggested strategies. If your child has autism, what we would do is meet with them in the first few weeks to create what we call an autism passport. And that's something which yourself and your child are involved in, so that staff are aware of their strengths and abilities and needs, and that would be shared with them as well. And again, anything that we do is constantly reviewed, especially during this time where they are moving to secondary school and appropriate supports are put into place.
Okay, somebody had asked for the email address. Again, if there's any other questions, that's it, just appeared. Thanks very much, Mrs. Steele. Okay, we're just checking to see if there's any more questions come in. Somebody asking whether they can speak to Mrs. Steele, but I'm sure if you've got any questions, if you phone the school and ask to speak to Mrs. Steele, if she's teaching, she won't be able to speak to you there and then, but the office will leave a message and they'll email her and she will get back to you. Okay. Okay, I think that's just about us. I'd like to thank you all very, very much for attending, for looking at me in my Scotland talk, which is not a sight, not the best sight you've seen. Big thank you to Mrs. Steele and to Mrs. Ben as well for staying on and for giving us the really useful information they did. And also a big, big thank you to Mr. Monaghan, who took the strain from me, and his IT skills were brilliant and allowed us to go ahead. So thank you all very, very much. Please tell your children if they're not watching, really looking forward to meeting them, and they will love Called Aside. They will love it, and they will settle in really quickly. We'll get the classes out to them, as I said, before the end of term, that will hopefully allay their fears that they're going to be in a class with somebody that they've put down as a friend. Okay, so thank you very much, and any questions, just email me, as I said, or phone. Okay, thank you.